The dying sun of Crithera cast long shadows across the battlefield, as Alpha Commander Theron of the Vorkan Empire made an impossible choice. His massive lupine form was covered in wounds, blue blood seeping through his ceremonial armor. Behind him, the remnants of his battalion fought desperately against the Jakari invasion force that had ambushed them on this forsaken world. "You want me to what?" Kale, the human scout, stared at the towering alien warrior in disbelief. He'd been tracking mineral deposits when the battle erupted, and now found himself face to face with one of the galaxy's most feared species. "Take my son. Keep him alive." Theron pushed forward a small figure, Varen, barely 8 cycles old by Vorkan standards, his silver fur matted with dust and fear bright in his golden eyes. "The Jakari will execute him for propaganda if they capture him." "You're human. They don't even know your species is here." Kale looked at the cub, then at the overwhelming enemy forces closing in. Every instinct screamed at him to refuse to run alone. Humans were scouts, observers. They didn't get involved in the Great Empire's wars. That was the rule that kept their fragile colonies safe. But Varen's eyes met his, and Kale saw something that transcended species. Pure, terrified hope. "Go," Theron commanded, turning back to the battle. "I will buy you time." Kale grabbed Varen's small paw and ran. The first night in the caves, Varen wouldn't speak. He huddled against the cold stone, trembling. Kale shared his rations, protein bars that the cub sniffed suspiciously before hunger won out. "Your father was brave," Kale offered quietly. "Was." Varen's voice cracked. Is brave." Kale corrected himself, though they both knew the truth. Over the following weeks, as they evaded Jakari patrols and navigated Crithara's hostile terrain, an unlikely bond formed. Kale taught Varen how humans survived, not through strength or advanced technology, but through adaptability and stubborn refusal to quit. "Why don't you have claws?" Varen asked one evening, examining Kale's hands. "We have something better," Kale replied, "using those same hands to fashion a trap from wire and salvaged parts. We have patience and creativity." Varen watched, fascinated as the human worked. The Vorkan Empire prided itself on warrior culture, on honor and direct confrontation. But here was this small, weak creature outsmarting predators twice his size through sheer ingenuity. "Teach me," Varen said. So Kale did. 3 months later, they were still alive, a miracle by anyone's standards. The Jakari occupation had solidified, and rescue seemed impossible. But Kale noticed something. Varen was no longer the frightened cub he'd saved. The young Vorkan moved with purpose now, his mind constantly working through problems the way Kale had taught him. "I've been thinking," Varen said one night, studying a salvaged datapad they'd scavenged. "The Jakari are monitoring all standard comm frequencies, yes? That's why we can't call for help. But what if we didn't use standard frequencies?" Varen's eyes gleamed. "Humans use different technology, different protocols. What if we combined Vorkan encryption with human signal modulation?" Kale stared at the cub. That might actually work. It took 2 weeks to build the transmitter from scraps. Varen's small claws proved invaluable for the delicate work, while Kale's knowledge of human tech provided the foundation. When they finally activated it, they held their breath. Silence. Days of silence. Then a response, not from the Vorkan Empire, but from a human colonial ship passing through the sector. Within hours, Kale had negotiated something unprecedented, a human-Vorkan joint operation. The Jakari never saw it coming. Human ships weren't warships. They were colony vessels, mining rigs, scoutcraft. Individually, they posed no threat. But Varen had learned something from Kale. Humans didn't fight fair. They fought smart. The attack was coordinated chaos. Human ships broadcasted false signals, creating phantom fleets on Jakari sensors. They dropped electromagnetic pulse mines that disabled defense grids. They fed targeting data to the Vorkan fleet that had assembled at the system's edge, guided by that impossible hybrid signal Varen and Kale had created. And at the center of it all, a young Vorkan cub coordinated the assault with a calm that belied his age, while a human scout ensured the technology kept working. When the Vorkan Empire's forces finally landed, they found the Jakari command structure in complete disarray. The occupation collapsed within days. Emperor Kraxus himself came to Crithera. The ancient Vorkan ruler stood before Kale and Varen in the reclaimed command center, his entire court watching. You saved my nephew, Kraxus said, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had ruled for centuries. You, a human, when you could have fled. With respect, Your Majesty, Kale replied. Your nephew saved himself, and maybe saved all of us too. Kraxus turned to Varen. Explain. Varen stepped forward, no longer the frightened cub but something new, a bridge between species. Grandfather, I learned something from Kale. The humans don't survive because they're strong. They survive because they adapt. They cooperate. They find creative solutions to impossible problems. He paused. Maybe we've been fighting the wrong way. Maybe we've been too proud to learn from others. The court murmured, some scandalized, others thoughtful. Kraxus studied his grandson for a long moment, then looked at Kale. What would you say to a formal alliance? Not as subjects, but as equals? Kale felt the weight of history in that question. Humanity had stayed small, stayed safe by staying insignificant. But maybe Varen was right. Maybe there was another way. I'd say it's about time the galaxy learned what happens when you combine Vorkan strength with human ingenuity. Kraxus smiled, a terrifying sight on a Vorkan face. Then let us teach them together. 20 years later, historians would point to that moment as the founding of the Compact, a multi-species alliance that would reshape galactic politics. They would speak of great battles and diplomatic triumphs. But those who were there knew the truth. It started with a desperate father's trust, a reluctant scout's compassion, and a young cub who learned that sometimes the strongest weapon isn't claws or cannons, but the willingness to learn from someone completely different from yourself. Kale and Varen remained friends for life. The human scout who became an ambassador, and the Vorkan prince who brought his empire into a new age. Together they proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just their stubborn survival, it was their ability to teach others to survive alongside them.